My name is Peter Rosset, and I'm a faculty member or professor at El Colegio de la Frontera Sur, ECOSUR in Mexico. Also a visiting professor at Thammasat University here in Thailand, and I'm a staff member of La Via Campesina, Mexico. The same driver of climate change is also driving the emergence of new diseases. And then if we look at the massive outmigration of peasant and other populations from rural areas, it's because their land is being grabbed by the same companies in order to produce that livestock feed or other monocultures. So many of the problems facing humanity, our planetary crisis, are all related to this nexus. We have to be very careful when we listen to solutions in the news media. And I can say, both as a scientist and as part of La Via Campesina, the global peasant movement, that literally almost every solution that we hear coming out of the mouth of any politician, whether it's Biden or whether it's governments in the global South, is a false solution, is a lie in terms of really addressing the causes of climate change. So we're facing right now a wave of green capitalism, the green economy, in which things like land grabbing and land degradation are being justified under the so-called solutions to climate change. The problem is that when we have international climate negotiations like the COP, where governments meet to supposedly address climate change, in reality what they're doing is they're meeting with the private sector, with global corporations, and they're trafficking in false solutions. False solutions to climate change, but which generate new profit opportunities for these companies. So some of these examples are so-called renewable energy. For example, agrofuels, which will cut down huge areas of forest to grow monoculture to be turned into either alcohol or biodiesel, but in fact end up using more energy and emitting more into the atmosphere than using petroleum. So they're a false solution, but they generate enormous profit-making opportunities and huge displacement of rural peasant and indigenous peoples' populations. Other kinds of renewable energies like aeolic energy, wind farms are very unproductive of energy, but destroy the environment. The same with solar panel plantations, the same with large hydroelectric dams. So the whole area of renewable energy has to be questioned. There's no such thing as free energy in climate terms. The only way to address the energy contribution to climate change is to use less energy. There's no way around that, and so all of these other solutions in one way or another end up being false solutions. Then we have the forest cover commitments under these negotiations, where governments, for example, say, we commit to increasing forest cover to 30% of our land area or 40% of our land area. What does that mean? They look at traditional peasant, indigenous people population who live in the forest people who in fact take care of the forest, that have been taking care of the forest for hundreds, if not thousands of years. They're now accused of degrading the forest under redrawn forest boundaries. They are evicted from their ancestral homeland, and that land is then given as a concession, oftentimes to foreign forestry companies, to plant a forest monoculture. Now, a forest monoculture is not a forest in ecological sense, and I think if anybody reflects on it, they'll realize that that's not a forest. A forest monoculture of commercial timber species, so that the company who receives the concession can first make money from carbon credits. This is a whole carbon credit thing is a fake solution. And then, of course, make money from the timber itself. Meanwhile, the people who lived in the forest before have lost their livelihood, their territory, and the forest no longer exists because, in fact, they weren't degrading the forest, they were taking care of the forest. Another fake solution has to do with companies declaring themselves net zero. First of all, net zero wouldn't be good enough. We have to reduce emissions, but the way they get to this so-called net zero, for example, here we're in Thailand right now, we just heard of a case of one of the major agribusiness companies based here in Thailand grabbing the land of peasants so that they could plant forest monoculture to claim carbon sequestration to offset the rest of their operation, which is amazingly, incredibly polluting and emitting of greenhouse gas emissions. So basically this so-called net zero means that they increase their emissions, making climate change worse and worse and worse, and drive more and more people off of their land through fake offsetting solutions, because a forestry monoculture in no way has the carbon sequestration ability of either a so-called natural forest or a natural forest managed by indigenous people. So I think, to summarize, what I would say, that rather than solving climate change, what we're seeing is that the face of capitalist expansion in the countryside worldwide now is a green face. It's business as usual, capitalism, profit-taking, evicting of local population, and all of this is justified by so-called climate commitments.